Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of the NBA and OKC podcast. I'm Deputy Sports Editor Mike Koehler. Joining me today, as always, NBA beat writer Darnell Mayberry. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. We've got some email questions from the people around town, but first we have something important to take care of, and that's over our shoulder. That's the Oklahoma City Thunder, as I have been telling everybody all week long, Darnell. As you know, one of the TV stations came out last week and said, this is going to be the name, Oklahoma City Thunder. We've got a couple of domains that have been registered by the register who works for the NBA, and we've got a source, I'm using the air quotes today, a source close to the ownership team that's come out and said it's going to be the Thunder. What have we learned this week? What are they saying? But most importantly, what are they not saying?
They're not saying anything about it. I mean, this silence is sort of raising questions for all of us. I mean, they're not confirming it. They're not denying it. It's interesting because another news station reported about this practice facility early yesterday, and then the team came out and said there's some false information out there. We want to put this out there, and we might as well release it now. And that's why they released it about the practice facility, because there was some false information out there. So they did clarify that information, but they're not clarifying this team name deal. So that sort of leads you to believe that it is going to be Thunder. I'm still not sure. I mean,
they're not doing us any favors.
They're not doing us any favors. But if it's Thunder, I mean, I think it has a ring to it. There's a lot of things you can do with Thunder. I like it just because the AC/DC name, I blogged about it, the AC/DC song Thunderstruck. Put it in my blog. If they come out to that song every night, right before the starting lineup is introduced, I think the Ford Center faithful will go nuts. I think you'd have a sold-out arena cheering on the home team to more wins than they had last year.
You're not convinced about the Garth Brooks Thunder Roll song?
It's terrible. It's terrible. With all due respect to Garth Brooks, Thunder Rolls is not what you want to play before an NBA game or any game. So a song about infidelity and spousal abuse is not what's going to get you fired up to watch NBA basketball.
What do you think the team's going to do then? Do they let this cool off a little bit and then they do it on their schedule? Or is it just a matter of we're going to wait and see and know maybe in the next 3 or 4 weeks?
I think they definitely want to release this information when they want it released. I think they're still trying to get some ducks in a row. Mm-hmm. What those ducks are, I have no idea at this point. I mean, they're real tight on information. I think we should see something here in the next probably 2 weeks. I mean, the league-wide schedule is going to be announced probably in the next 2.5 weeks. They have to announce that name before that league schedule comes out. I mean, because from a marketing standpoint, you want people in other cities to know who's coming to your city, your arena, and not just Oklahoma City, but the Oklahoma City what. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that and all kinds of other reasons, I think we'll know before the league schedule comes out in early August.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take some emails. We solicited some today. We're going to be doing this when we do live NBA podcasts on newsok.com. First question is from Matt in Edmond. He's wondering about the acquisition of C.J. Miles, who the team got from Utah this week. Tell us a little bit about him and what does he add to the mix?
Well, first of all, it's not official yet. Nothing's official yet. That's true. The point of restricted free agency is the team who owns that player has the rights to that player, has the first right to refusal. You have up to 7 days to match an offer sheet from another team. So Utah has until Saturday to match the offer that Oklahoma City gave C.J. Miles. So if they don't match it, I think there was a report out of Utah that said they're going to wait until the 7 days is up to announce whether or not they're going to match it. So if they don't match it, C.J. Miles is a young player. He's still only 21. Last year he was the 14th youngest player in the NBA. He's got a lot of potential. I mean, he averaged 25, 26 points in high school. He was a player of the year in Texas. He's out of Dallas Skyline High School. So he can score. He's a scorer. He's a great shooter. and he can get to the rim. So, you might want to think a little bit about J.R. Smith when you think of C.J. Miles.
Why do that to somebody?
Not the off-the-court issues, not the head case issues. And he's not the. I don't think he's quite the athlete J.R. Smith is. J.R. Smith was an incredible athlete, but C.J. Miles has great athleticism. So I think you're going to see a guy who's athletic. He can shoot the ball. He's not the best defender, but he's going to add something offensively to this team.
Okay, just talking about the rookies a little bit. Everybody is pretty high on Westbrook after what he did down at Orlando. This is an email question from Jason. He's talking about Jared Bayless, a guy that the team passed on, who was the MVP of the Summer League in Las Vegas. Looking back at how both those guys did, should the team have any regrets that they passed on Bayless to get Westbrook? Or what do you think, just from seeing him so early?
Not at all. First of all, Summer League, you can tell certain things from Summer League. I mean, how a guy handles himself, how poised he might be, how comfortable he is at doing different things on the court. But it's not a gauge of how good a guy's going to be once the regular season starts. I mean, Jared Bayless averaged well over 20 points in the Las Vegas Summer League. He could come into the NBA and struggle from day one. Mm-hmm. Just like Jared Bayless did well in Las Vegas. You pointed out before we went on that Russell Westbrook tore up the Orlando Summer League. He was the best player by many accounts in Orlando, aside from Kevin Durant, the one game he played. So, I think both players are going to be terrific players in the NBA. I think it's way too early. It is way too early to judge the draft and whether or not the Sonics made a mistake passing on Jared Bayless. I think both will be good players.
Talking a little bit more about Westbrook, Zach from Bethany, he has an email question. Talking about the starting lineup, the first five who are going to be out there when they open up this season. Obviously, Westbrook's going to be in there. How different does this year's starting five look from the Sonics starting five from last season?
I think it's also too early to tell. It depends on what happens not only in training camp in October, but at the start. We still have months left in free agency. Anything can happen with trades. So this team might, what the current team is, makeup of this roster is now, might be what they bring in the training camp. It might not be. I mean, they still could wheel and deal and improve their roster somehow. But I think right now you have to look at Earl Watson probably will start at point guard from day one over Russell Westbrook. I mean, it's just rare that a rookie point guard comes in and starts for a team. Chris Paul, obviously the exception. Darren Williams was an exception. Kevin Durant obviously is going to start. Whether they move him to the three, to small forward, or leave him at shooting guard is the question. If they move him to small forward, then C.J. Miles, if they get C.J. Miles, could possibly step into that starting shooting guard situation spot. And then you look at Jeff Green, whether or not they want to bring him into a full-time starter, make him a full-time starter, or keep him coming off the bench. And then Nick Collison and Chris Wilcox. I think for the most part, this starting roster as of today will look the same as it did last year with Chris Wilcox, Nick Collison, Kevin Durant, Earl Watson. And then you got Damian Wilkins. I mean, maybe he's out of the picture now that C.J. Miles could be in the picture. But it just depends. I think it's too early to tell.
Is that another thing that could be decided in the next couple of weeks?
No.
Because you've even written in Insiders that they could trade Luke Ridnour, they could dump a bunch of guys. Is that a lot going to happen between now and the beginning of October?
A lot can happen. I mean, they could trade some guys. They could pick up they can't pick up anybody else. They got 15 on the roster if they sign C.J. Miles. But trades could always factor into the equation. Not only that, but, I mean, it's always a competition. The only players who have a guaranteed spot really are Kevin Durant. I mean, in all honesty, Kevin Durant is the only guy who has a guaranteed roster spot. That's what October's for. And, the preseason and training camp, the guys are going to be battling for roster spots. Earl Watson is going to try to hold off, if he's on the roster, he's going to try to hold off not only Russell Westbrook, but Luke Ridnour. I mean, that's going to be a tight battle for that starting point guard spot. I mean, maybe they want to accelerate Russell Westbrook's learning curve and throw him into the fire immediately. It might not be the best of ideas.
Okay, one last thing to wrap this up, and that's tickets.
tickets.
We had a big piece on. We had a mention in Monday about 16,000 people now on the list that the team has. What's next for that? Does that mean a couple of questions about that? Does that mean that there's going to be 32,000 people? Does that mean 2 tickets for every person on that list? And when are they going to start rolling out prices and talking to people about getting seats in the Ford Center?
Like everything else with this franchise, we don't know. I don't think they know at this point. I think they're sort of finalizing ticket prices, and they're probably getting ready to announce them in the very near future. I think what's next to answer the question is they're going to call sales representatives are going to call if you signed up for that ticket request list. You're going to be contacted by a sales rep, and then at that point, I think they will have some pricing available to let you know what's out there, and so then you go from there. That 16,000, I've heard that it's a lot more than one request behind each request. I mean, people want at least 2 tickets, maybe 3 for each request. So yeah, you could be looking at 32,000 or upwards of 32,000 requests. Whether or not they all buy, I mean, that's a different question. I mean,
right.
they could say,
on that list.
Yeah, your name's on the list, but once you talk it over with the wife,
exactly,
she says $3,200 for tickets. So that's another story. But I think they will have pricing done soon, and they'll be contacting whoever signed up for that list.
What do you think, just to wrap up, what do you think the chances are that they could sell out the whole season?
I think it's a good chance because out of that 16,000 that signed up, again, a lot aren't going to buy tickets. Many are going to buy tickets. Most of them know. I would think that most of those 16,000 who signed up for that list are season ticket holders from the Hornets, and they pretty much have an idea of how much these tickets are. Granted, they're going to be a little bit more expensive than the Hornets, but you already go in knowing that, look, the season tickets are going to start at $800, $900 and up. So I think that helps the Oklahoma City's cause. And also the corporate base. I mean, they haven't signed the corporate sponsors yet. So once they announce those corporate sponsors and they get up all those gobs of tickets, I think it's a realistic chance that this. I mean, I don't know if it's ever happened that an entire season is sold out anywhere. But I mean, I think you could see 31, 35 games out of the 41 sold out.
Alrighty, that wraps it up this week for the NBA and OKC podcast. Be sure to join us every week on newsok.com as we get closer and closer to a real NBA season. For Darnell, Mayberry, I'm Mike Koehler. We'll see you later.